every single day we meet people that are struggling and we smile through it, right? We smile through the tears, right? Because really, number one, who wants to be vulnerable to somebody else? Who wants to open up and tell them that, you know what, I'm having a really hard day or really struggle.
Right.
And then who has the time to sit and listen? Because that person is probably also struggling and is thinking, oh, like, do I have the energy or the time to invest in listening to that person? So I think it's finding these connections or finding these ways to connect with one another.
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely important as you've experienced, just having somebody that's like-minded, especially. And that is, yeah, that's huge. That's everything. And I mean, luckily for people that don't and need it, there are those crisis lines. And I don't think that gets shared enough. Like, I don't think enough people know or think to call those and
Yeah.
like the value that can provide for them. But yeah, for me, working at home, definitely, I needed to figure out a community or find a community. But that also happened with GTFO. It was just such therapy for me that I didn't know I needed.
Welcome back to Hear Me Out with Belinda. Today, we're going to be hearing above the noise and talking about mental health. So today in studio, we have the co-owner of GTFO, Melissa. Welcome in studio.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You are welcome. So what does GTFO stand for?
Many things. Originally, get the F outside.
Okay.
We also like to say get the family outside, get the fun outside, get the fur balls outside. We kind of spun it into what's your F, what gets you outside.
Okay.
So we're open, but it is meant to be a bold logo. That's what starts conversations, and we've seen that lots because the get the F outside part stops people in their tracks. They want to know more, whether it's a positive thing or a negative thing. If it's a negative thing, it gives us a chance to explain it, and often we'll end on a positive note, but that does get people's attention. So that's what
Yeah.
we like to use.
That's awesome. So as far as I know, because I know we've met before and chatted. So obviously you have the apparel, the branded apparel. That's your business.
Mhm.
But I understand that the reason behind it, the reason why you're so passionate about mental wellness, what is the story behind that?
Um, well, this was definitely my husband's passion project that he started. He loved the boldness, the logo, the idea of people wearing it and everything. He didn't really put meaning behind it or, yeah, like to raise awareness, mental health, anything like that. It was just like, I like it, like the saying, it's catchy. I think people will like it. Let's do that. And I didn't really gravitate to that. I agreed, like I liked the logo and everything, but I was like, I need something to feel connected to it. Because otherwise it's just like, if I'm being honest, I've never been a big outdoorsy person. I'm actually not. I always laugh when people are like, oh, you must be such a big outdoors person. I'm not. I'll admit that. But so I needed something more to, if I was going to participate in this business project. So we were kind of trying to think of something that we can either raise awareness to or give back a portion to a certain specific charity or something. And then at that same time, it just happened to be COVID. Like I was saying last time I was here, that our first box of clothes arrived the week that everything was shut down, the very first week. So we were definitely, it didn't start in COVID, like it wasn't a COVID idea, but that definitely like gave us the time and also inspired some of the mental health part of it. But at that same time, a close family member was going through struggles, mental health, and it was really hard for us to see because we felt helpless. We didn't know what was going on, just some like depression and anxiety, and it was just so out of character. And we started well, we figured out a couple of things. One thing we figured out was if she went outside first thing in the morning to go for a walk or go golfing or go do something, it just set up her whole day different. Like it was just, she was back to her old self, but if she didn't, it was just, you just seen it. You just seen it completely in her eyes, like a different person. So that kind of pushed us to start doing some research on like outdoors and mental health and the benefits,
Mhm.
what it does for you. And man, there's a lot of like proven facts of what getting out, especially in nature.
Mhm.
But we can't always get out in nature. So there's benefits for sure of reducing anxiety and stress, boosting endorphins, like just tons of knowledge. And we're like, wow. And I just felt like this is something we need to like connect for our business. And then the other aspect of it, which kind of stemmed into this End the Silence, was to get people to talk more and the importance of being vulnerable and talking about your struggles and asking people about their struggles. Because during that process, like for me, it made me realize how much I don't ask people how they're doing and in a real meaningful way, not just, to make
Mhm.
conversation, but um, and while I knew she was going through these struggles, I just always felt like as long as she's having a good day, there's no need to bring it up. Like just let's not,
Yeah.
rock the boat. Like all is good, so let's just keep it going. But really what she wanted was for us to be like, how are you doing? Like how are you feeling? Let's talk about this. And that was super important. And I think that's important in a lot of different cases. I think that is why there is a lot of uh, people dying due to mental health is because they don't talk about it. Um, it came shortly after COVID. Like we all know, there was a lot of people taking their lives because of the struggles, and they probably couldn't talk about it or felt like they couldn't, especially with
Mhm.
men. And that's what sparked these hoodies. In the silence, we made them bold and pink to start to get attention. And yeah, it just kind of went from there that we're like, and it just kind of grabbed a gear for me that I'm like, okay, I like this. Like, we need to do this. So,
Well, that's awesome. And I
yeah.
think, mental health is such a broad topic.
Hmm.
I think COVID was really a difficult time for a lot of
Hmm.
people. Like, and it did bring out that whole mental wellness aspect. I'm going to go back to my own struggles after I had my son. He's actually 19 now, and I was in South Africa at the time. And I had these three close friends who all worked in reservations at a large company for actually outdoor. It was actually a conservation company at the time. It was called actually and Beyond. No, it was called CC Africa. They've since changed it to and Beyond because they've gone out of Africa into India and stuff. But we were doing reservations, and Caroline got pregnant first, and then Janine, and then myself. And so Caroline had an older sister and a mum that could help her, with, give her advice, talk through what's happening, with the baby and stuff. So through pregnancy and then at the birth. And then Janine had lost her mum, and she didn't have a sister. So her go to was Caroline, for the same thing. And then I was like 6 weeks behind Janine. And so I'd also lost my mum. And my sister didn't have any kids or anything. So my go to was Janine. And I remember after my oldest was born, I think he must have been about 3 or 4 weeks. And, you're sitting all alone in the house. You feel, I had my poop charts going, and I just felt like all I'm doing is, feeding him and cleaning him. And like,
Mm,
there's no life for me. And I'm in my pajamas, and my breakfast cereal is still there, and it's 8 o'clock at night.
mm,
And I remember calling Janine, or maybe she called me, and I just sat crying for like an hour and talking. And because she was, 6 to 8 weeks ahead of me, she knew by then it gets a bit easier. After that 6 week mark, the baby starts sleeping a bit easier. The poops slow down a bit and they're more manageable. But it was really a difficult time of feeling stuck.
but,
And although it was a beautiful time, I was incredibly happy on one hand that I had this beautiful, healthy baby boy.
mhm,
Um, but I was so alone, on the other hand. I had no one to talk to about it until, Janine was there. And it just, I mean, this is 19 years later. I remember that conversation, and how impactful it was to me to have that sense of community,
Mm,
someone to talk to about very similar thing. And I think that just goes through the entire life, right? That was a very joyful occasion, but um, moving on in life, I think every single day we meet people that are struggling and we smile through it, right? We smile through the tears, right? Because really, number one, who wants to be vulnerable to somebody else? Who wants to open up and tell them that, you know what, I'm having a really hard day or really struggle?
right.
And then who has the time to sit and listen? Because that person is probably also struggling and is thinking, oh, like, do I have the energy or the time
Mhm.
to invest in listening to that person? So I think it's finding these connections or finding these ways to connect with one another.
Mhm.
And I think one of the things you mentioned on a previous podcast was your connection within the community for yourself, right? Because being at home, you don't have a lot of people to talk
Mhm.
to, but you do rely on the markets and being out there when you actually are chatting with
Mhm.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's extremely important as you've experienced just having somebody that's like-minded, especially. And that is, yeah, that's huge. That's everything. And I mean, luckily for people that don't and need it, there are those crisis lines. And I don't think that gets shared enough. Like, I don't think enough people know or think to call those and
Yeah.
like the value that can provide for them. But yeah, for me, working at home, definitely, uh, I needed to figure out a community or find a community. But that also happened with GTFO, like as we started getting ambassadors for the company and started getting a fairly good amount of local ambassadors. We did different events where we'd go out for hikes and everything. Um, and that's when I realized how much I probably needed GTFO as well. Because, like I touched on, I am not a big outdoorsy person. So for me, it doesn't naturally, I'm not like, ooh, let's go out and do this on a Saturday.
Mhm.
Like, I'm more like, let's stay in and watch a movie and do a puzzle or, like something like that. That's my comfort. But we started hosting these events. So the date was set and it was relying on my husband and I to show up because we were hosting them. And so, as much as I would sometimes struggle, and I'd be like, oh, I just wish we could stay home. It's a Saturday. I don't want to set my alarm and drive, out this far. Uh, but I would do it. It was just such therapy for me that I didn't know I needed,
Yeah.
like I would just feel so different out there, and we'd have no cell service and you'd be in a group of like-minded people. I mean, they're probably more naturally outdoorsy than me, but it was great examples for me and great for me to be around those types of people. But we were all like-minded in the mental health,
Mhm.
no judgment. Anybody can be vulnerable. And the importance of that. So everybody felt safe. And a lot of these people, like none of them knew each other. So we were all kind of just taking a chance, hoping that there was a connection and we'd have a great day. It'd always end up staying longer than what we normally did because usually it's a hike and then we do a campfire and like roast hot dogs or whatever we brought, had
Mm.
snacks and everything. And we'd get home, in the evening and it was like, I just felt so recharged. And I was like, oh, like that was such a great day. Like
Yeah.
I just couldn't wait to post pictures about it or make like an album where we'd start kind of a group chat and share the photos that we took. And, you just made these connections that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And I didn't know that I, needed that. And although I kept pretty quiet about my struggles. And that's something that I still work at, but it just felt like therapy that
Yeah.
was important. So
I think that's the key point is that um, being quiet about our own struggles, like it's very easy, I think, for me to find compassion for somebody who is going through a difficult time, right? And
mhm,
so we can classify that as, someone who's grieving or having a physical, disease or, just being laid off from work. We know that those are stressful factors. And so we would understand that they could be having, some mental health difficulties within those situations. But I think it's harder and I don't know if it's because of stigmatism, like I'm really, that when when nothing's going wrong, you know, when we have a job and we have a healthy family, and by all accounts, we should be happy, and we're
Mhm.
not happy, right? Like we're feeling empty, because that's something I've struggled with. Um, was it last year? Yeah, actually, it was the early 2025 that I actually worked with a life coach, um, because I did feel empty, right? And I couldn't understand why. Why was I so sad? Why was I waking up crying every day? You know, and but it's not something I was going to talk about. You know, it's not
Mhm.
something you can share because my husband couldn't understand, and he was like, "But you're happy. You like what you do. Like our family's good. Like why? You know." And it's nothing against him. He just couldn't sort of comprehend why I had all these, you know, feelings. And we could probably get into women and, you know, hormones and emotions
Mhm.
and all these other types of things. But I think it's very real. Like a lot of people, I mean, I deal with seniors a lot. I've had seniors come in actually, particularly before Christmas. And even though everything should be happy for them, they are incredibly depressed, you know,
Mhm.
before Christmas. Um, and so just talking about that, you know, like, and so for me, it's, you know, like offering them a safe space. Like, even though, you know, I'm cleaning or checking the hearing aids, you know, we can offer them a cup of coffee and a chocolate or something. And just that environment to be vulnerable for a bit,
Right.
right? And I think that's the problem with mental health, is that we think that our problem isn't severe enough to warrant talking about. Do you think
Mhm.
that's maybe what stops you from talking about it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I partly, just with having the company, I guess I felt like we had a responsibility to create this safe space and to like be there for everybody that I guess I just didn't want to burden people with my own struggles, you know?
Yeah,
Or, you know, part of the struggles was the stress of the business itself. So I didn't really want to open up that and say like, you know, GTFO is really been stressful for me, you know,
yeah,
when everybody's like here for us and here for GTFO and
yeah.
like supporting us and we're out doing this together and it's amazing. And you know, but yet it's kind of in a way the cause of like some of my struggles.
Stress.
But that's simply on like the business end of
Right.
like owning a business, trying to grow it, dealing with the setbacks and everything and like
Hmm.
the struggle that that would have. So it was like this weird that it was, like, so good for me mentally, but then also, you know, causing a lot of stress too, so I guess I just didn't really know how to, express that properly, you know, so that it didn't come
Yeah.
off like, you know, I don't know, that I was complaining
Right. Yeah.
about what this,
Yeah.
brand is, because I mean, it really is great, and it's what pushes me forward, you know, to keep going is those moments,
Yeah.
you know, the connections.
Yeah, because
But
you
I
do believe in it, but it's
yeah,
just like your own.
absolutely.
But as the co-owner, you're having those struggles yourself, right?
Yeah.
As being a business owner,
Yeah,
right?
it's
So
simply
yeah.
it has nothing to do with, like, the community and the mental health, like, those are
Hmm.
what keeps me going. It's more just simply of, like, a work stress almost, you know?
When in the community, I'm always curious about this because I do volunteer with the Rotary Club of Okotoks, and I've said that very much that this year is a very pivotal year because we have a lot of newer members, um, that many are female
Mhm.
members, and then a lot of our longer standing Rotarians are senior males.
Oh, interesting.
And I always, you know, look, we want to incorporate stuff for both, right?
Mhm.
Because I think, you know, I was thinking about it today actually before the show, and I don't want to get all, you know, political out there, but for myself, like I have the Rotary Club and I have a good mix, you know, of people there that I can talk to. And then I have my Creating Connections group, which is a women's group.
Mhm.
And then I have several other women sort of only networks. And then I thought to myself, you know, what does my husband do? You know, because yes, he could join Rotary, but he's actually the one driving the youngest son around. But I don't know if men are allowed to have men only clubs anymore. You know, I think we've taken that away from them by calling foul, or I don't know, you know, what
Mhm.
the political term is. But I'm like, they need their own groups as well to feel
Mhm.
safe in.
Mhm.
And so maybe I wonder because men are, I'm going to read the stats again. But suicide rates are approximately 3 times higher among men than compared to women. And so I wonder if part of it is because there's a generation of boys don't cry. Boys don't talk about their feelings. They would rather, punch it out, or they're taught to do that.
Right.
And then on top of that, we've taken away their clubs, they made only clubs where they could maybe talk,
Right.
about it. So I don't know. I think it's just interesting to think about how the world is moving. So do you feel like there's more men struggling, like in the groups that you've been in, than women, or?
Not openly, no.
No.
But I
Okay.
mean, I'm sure they are. But we
Yeah.
see more in posts from women or women reaching out and everything. The men are more of the quieter ones. But we have seen it. Like, it was a huge movement when we had an ambassador sign up fairly early days. And we didn't know, at the time we were getting quite a few ambassadors, so we weren't personally, super connected with everyone. But all of a sudden they tagged us in a post and wearing this hoodie, actually the same pink, and the silence, which is the more vulnerable one we have, with the logo that's clearly mental health based. Hot pink, and he's this burly guy with this big beard, bald, wearing this pink hoodie outside, posing for it and making a vulnerable post about his mental health, and tagged us in it. And we're just like, whoa, this is amazing.
Yeah.
How amazing is this? And then his wife ended up, I think, reaching out to us and trying to volunteer him. I think it was to do one of our lives. We used to do lives once a week on Instagram where the guy that was running our Instagram, Dylan, he would interview an ambassador and just get to know them, and why they decided to become a GTFO ambassador, and what, they open it up to see how vulnerable they can be, as vulnerable as they want or not. Because some people, it's just because they're outdoorsy and
Yeah.
they like the slogan, and then other people was more mental health related. So he did one, and it was huge because he was being very vulnerable and opening up, and we're like, we need more of this. This is amazing. And we're still friends with them today. They live in Red Deer. And they send videos of, I think they have 30 some of our hoodies, and they've got its own closet, and they're big promoters, advocates for mental health, and they're great. But that kind of opened the door a bit for some more men to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And Dylan, our guy that used to run our Instagram, he's been emotional on there many times doing interviews, because he gets emotional. He's he gets touched. He's very big empath. So there was a lot of teary-eyed interviews with both him talking to a female or a male. But we started to get more men sign up after Sheldon with this hoodie did it, and it was we need this more, and we need guys to know that they can do this, and the impact that it makes. Because it's not as common. It is more female, and we do have more female ambassadors for sure than male. But when we do have some guys, they're, it makes such an impact.
I think, and it's taking away slowly that stigma, right? About talking about mental wellness, and that it can affect anybody, right? That's a whole big thing. That's what, going back to, my husband's in his 50s as well, right? So going back to the, he was brought up in that whole, boys don't cry, you keep your emotions in. And, there's just, even though he's done a lot of growth work and a lot of emotional work, we do have 2 sons, one's 15 and one's 19. And, he's more compassionate, and they can express their feelings. But I think there's also a part of them that learned from their dad, to kind of keep it bottled down.
Right.
And just always trying to give them that safe space, that it's okay, to not be okay, but you need, talk about it. There's places to go. And actually, I just thought about someone in the local community, one of where I go. So I don't know if you've heard of the Foothills Wellness Retreat. So they do a lot of yoga nidras and sound bars, Todd and Lisa.
Just on your, on the podcast.
Okay,
I did, yeah.
And so Todd used to have something called the Shaman tribe that they would run within the local community for men only. So it was exactly geared toward men to create that bit of a tribe, for men. I think he's changed the name of it, but I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, that is also something, at least there are people within the community trying to be vulnerable and to create, that safe space for others. Um, I know I spoke with being on the Rotary once again. There's the Foothills Community Coalition that is trying to build a youth hub within Okotoks. There is a desperate need, and they've done a lot of work on looking at the needs of the community. And it is really sad of the mental health crisis that we have going on. And one of the key things that stood out at one of the meetings from, the chief superintendent of the Foothills School Division, and he said the parents are not okay. And when the parents are not okay, the kids are not okay. And that rings in my mind the whole time, right? Because as a parent, if I'm not emotionally capable of being, the emotional support for my child, of course he's not going to be okay, right? Like teenagehood is dramatic. My teenage years were absolutely awful. And it wasn't due to, parents or anything. It was just awful, for many reasons. And so if the parents can't be there for their kids, like we're just creating this cycle, right? And I don't know how to stop it.
Yeah.
I think that's the key is maybe just talking about it, being vulnerable, going outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
I dropped the F there.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, I completely agree. I think it needs to start young with the open communication with kids. Having them feeling safe to express those feelings, and like parents need to start young with them because that sets up their whole life, that programs them, so I think that definitely has been an issue, but I think we've come a long way, but we
Yeah.
still have a long way to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, things
Yeah.
like these things help, and the events that we put on, and every little bit I think helps, but I do think it starts with kids, with your communication with them for sure when they're little.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if for whatever reason their parents aren't able, to help them at that point, I think, maybe just going outside, the key
Oh yeah.
message is go outside, go for a walk if you can. I don't know. I would say hug a tree, but I can
Yeah.
see my kids cringing as I
As you
say
say
that.
it.
But I'm like, it's beautiful, you
Yeah.
just do feel connected. There is
Mhm.
that connection back to
Yeah.
nature when you do connect. And obviously in the summer, barefoot out in the
Oh
grass,
yeah.
it's all those things.
Yeah. Well, and we have, like, just locally, we have just such beautiful mountains surrounding us.
Mhm.
And I mean, the great thing about it is that you lose service and kids have to disconnect, and then
Yeah.
you just really get to enjoy it because, yeah, we all know the devices that everybody has now. And, it was
Yeah.
video games, and now it's video games and like plus everything. So if you can just take a little bit of time to go out there and
Yeah.
just disconnect and let your kids, like, guaranteed everyone's going to have a great time, you
Absolutely.
know?
And when we can, I think one of my favorite things is actually a fire pit, being by
Mhm.
one of the rivers in the safe spots and just basically just watching the flames dance, because
Mhm.
it's just mesmerizing. It clears your head. You're not really thinking, I mean, we can call it meditation or, but it's one of those things that just makes everything okay.
Oh, yeah,
Again,
definitely.
so
Yeah.
whatever fills your cup, I guess,
Yeah.
out in nature, whether you're running,
Yeah.
hiking, skiing, hugging a tree.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because we definitely, have a lot of hikers that are ambassadors. So we were posting a lot about hiking and everything, but then we found we were getting a little too cornered with that because people were just thinking that is only if you like to climb mountains and everything, and that wasn't us. So
Okay.
we didn't want people to feel like intimidated by that
Mhm.
or that they couldn't connect. So that's when we actually started doing, like, just a fire out in the mountains, or we did a couple at, like, Fish Creek Park, or um yeah, just to get out and do simple things that aren't, that anybody,
Anybody
anyone
can
can
do.
come
Yeah,
and
it
do.
doesn't cost a lot of money,
Yeah,
right? So,
exactly. And that made a huge difference. And that's something we still talk about and promote. That is, like, even going outside if you can to eat your lunch, or, just something. And I know obviously in the winter it's hard also, but you
yeah.
still feel good, like, bundle up. We went for a walk yesterday this was about 3K. And I didn't really want to go, but my husband dragged me out there. And I mean, I did, but I was like a little one, but then
Mhm.
once you're out there, it's like, okay, we can keep going. We can keep going. You're just like, oh, a little bit more. Let's do one more like loop over here or something. And then you just come in and feel so refreshed. And it's like, oh, I'm so glad we did that,
Yeah,
but it's just so easy not to.
it is.
But,
Yeah, it is. It's very easy not to, right? But
mm,
especially during winter, the Canadian winters are very cold, right? It's much
mm,
easier just to stay inside and build a puzzle, like you said, or watch a
yeah.
movie. But you do feel better getting out there,
Hmm.
and getting that walk and stuff. So,
Yeah, definitely. So I'm
yeah.
like, well, I wish I had a dog because that would motivate me. But I'm like, oh, I just got to do it myself.
No,
Because that's what a lot of people, we made a post and we're like, what like motivates you to get outside in this cold? And I think everybody said, my dog, my dog, my
a
dog.
dog.
And I was like,
Yeah.
well, I guess that's great,
Oh,
whatever it is.
absolutely. Yeah. And then pets, I mean, obviously you have to look after them. So sometimes the financial burden can be,
Hmm.
I guess, a bit of a stress for some people. But I have a big dog and I have two cats, and they are part of what fills me up.
Hmm. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, just being with them, the dog's always happy to see you. So I guess once again, there's these different things that people can utilize, right?
Hmm.
Just to
Oh,
help them
for
feel
sure.
better.
Find something, try something new or find a community that you can go out like Facebook page. There's so much access now that we never used to have that you
Yeah.
can join. Like a lot of people that we know join these groups and end up connecting with people and going and
Yeah.
trying new things
Yeah. I think
out
that
there.
I think that's a message for anybody out there, like listening, like we've given the crisis line, but maybe, yeah, get off social media and go out, get some fresh air,
Hmm.
and maybe try, use social media to try and connect,
Hmm.
and unfortunately, yes, maybe it's not going to work the first time or depending on your group, but there are groups
Hmm.
out there that you can connect into and just feel better, right? And
Hmm.
you're not alone. I think that's the bottom line of sharing the stories
Right.
is you're not alone. Everybody's struggling with something, and you got to just find people that you can connect with and help you through.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think everybody struggles with something. If they didn't, well, I don't know. They're maybe not opening
Yeah.
up. But I mean, I think yeah, once you do start talking to people, and I think you do kind of recognize it within yourself or get more comfortable to share also.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. Is there
Thanks
anything
for
else you
having
wanted
me.
to leave the viewers with today?
Um, yeah, I guess just letting people know, like just what you touched on, that you're not alone, and reach out if you're
Reach
struggling,
out.
even if you
Yeah,
think that it's maybe not big compared to other people's problems. It doesn't mean that it's not important and that you don't deserve to like be heard or
exactly.
seen. And
I think
yeah,
that's an important message, right?
yeah.
Even though you don't feel like it's one of those priorities, it's a
Mhm,
priority to you
mhm.
and you are valued.
Yeah,
So
and that's huge.
reach
So,
out.
yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. Well, thanks so much again.
Thanks for having me.